On the 19th of June 2023, Nigeria had its 22nd Chief of Air Staff with the appointment of Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar by President Bola Tinubu. In his first exclusive and extensive interview as the Air Chief, Air Marshal Abubakar spoke with Babajide Collateral on his vision for the Nigerian Air Force, stressing that motivation of troops through enhanced welfare is his priority. Let's bring you the full interview with the Chief of Air Staff.
Hassan.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you.
Welcome to Headquarters Nigerian Air Force.
Thank you for having us. And thank you for the good job you do for our country.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Welcome to Headquarters Nigerian Air Force. Once
Thank
again,
you, sir.
It's really a pleasure to have you around. I've been seeing you on TV. I'm an ardent follower of your program.
Thank
So
you,
I
sir.
see you on TV once in a while, except now that we're too busy. Sometimes we don't get to watch TV.
Yes. I
But
know
it's a
these are
very-
difficult times.
Yes. It's a very good program. I think it does a very good job enlightening the population.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We'll continue to give our best, getting Nigerians to understand the level of sacrifice that our servicemen and women are making. When the soldier leaves his home, there is no guarantee that he will return alive. So we must bear that in mind, that the sacrifices are enormous, and this is the reason some of us are particularly interested in what's going on in the armed forces, because we support what they are doing, we support them with our prayers, and I believe that Nigeria will triumph over its enemies. Thank you once again for the good job that you are doing, and for electing, even in the first place, to be a soldier, because we call everyone everyone in the armed forces a soldier.
Yes.
A young man to decide that this is where I'm headed.
Thank you very much for the kind words. Like you said, it's a job that requires a lot of sacrifice, because sometimes you are required to pay the supreme price, by laying your life down in defense of the territorial integrity, peace, and progress of the nation. And I think you are doing a very good job enlightening Nigeria. Sometimes, there is really a gap between what the armed forces are doing and then what the population is thinking. So I think you do a very good job bridging that gap to really bring the awareness to the population what is really going on, so that the efforts and the sacrifices the armed forces are making are properly understood, by the general populace. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you continue in that light.
This is a special interview with the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Abubakar. Air Marshal Abubakar was appointed recently to head the Nigerian Air Force at this time, at this critical time of Nigerian history. And it's our privilege today to have him talk to us on his goals and what he intends to do to make the Nigerian Air Force better than he met it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I would like to ask you, what are your key priorities as you settle into the job of leading the Nigerian Air Force to greater heights? What are your key priorities and goals?
When we came in, based on what we have found on the ground in terms of challenges, and then what resources we have to work with in addressing some of those challenges, we had to look at the operational environment in totality. And we realized that we are spread quite thinly on the ground, but very widely. And so we needed to economize effort, concentrate our resources in order for us to achieve greater effectiveness and efficiency in our operations. And that informed my command philosophy for the Nigerian Air Force, which is to transform the Air Force into an agile and resilient force that is capable of meeting all the air power demands of national security in all operational environments. And then this way, once the service is more resilient, is more agile, we are able to achieve more and in terms of effectiveness and efficiency in all our theaters of operations. And in order to achieve this command philosophy, I was able to identify some key enablers. The first is to really look at our force structure and establishment and try to optimize it, because the way it is, the way we are structured now doesn't really give room for the maximum efficiency that we can get. So first is to look at the structure, which we are already doing. There are some units that we really have to close down, while we have to reinforce some others, in order to be able to be more effective and more efficient. So that's one area we're really looking at, optimizing force structure and establishment. Then we also have to focus on training, because training has to be continuous. If you have any break in training, you feel the impact in the conduct of your operations. So the second area of focus is to really make a lot of investments in training, both aircrew and ground personnel. The other aspects, or the other key enabler of the command philosophy, is also to ensure that the personnel are highly motivated, because that's the only way they can perform their jobs more efficiently. We realize that in any system, of which the Air Force is not an exception, the most important element is the human being. And as such, we need to pay a lot of attention, because empirically it has been proven that a very highly motivated individual, even with equipment that are not very sophisticated or so advanced, is able to achieve a lot. And the reverse is the case. An individual that is not highly motivated or is not adequately motivated, even with very high-tech equipment, very capable equipment, is not able to achieve much. So giving credence to the fact that the human being is actually the most important element in any system. And that is why we are paying a lot of attention in making sure that our personnel are highly motivated, providing essential services, medicals, accommodation, again, training, some of the other intangible aspects, very good leadership, because all those contribute to make sure that the soldier or the officer is highly motivated or otherwise.
Talking about the capability of the Air Force at this time, which areas would you want to see improvement? I'm talking about the platforms that you have. In which specific areas do you want to see improvement, and where you would like to perhaps even acquire more hardware?
You realize that in the recent past, the federal government has been very kind to the Air Force, in the sense that quite a few platforms have been procured for the Air Force. But it's a work in progress. So there is a lot of improvement, and we're very appreciative to the federal government for that. But we are still far away from where we need to be in terms of capability, in terms of availability of equipment. So in every of the platforms, we have the rotary wing platforms, we have the fixed wing platforms, which involve the transport as well as the attack or fighter platforms. So in each of these categories, there is a lot of improvements, but we also need, we are not yet where we are, so it's a continuous process. So in each of those categories, we still need more equipment, more platforms, more armament, and also more technology, the deployment of more technology.
There are those who have told me that the kind of threats that we face are similar to the kind of threats that the armed forces in Cambodia face from time to time. Do you agree that at this time we need far more ground attack helicopters than other aircraft?
Yes, definitely. You know, there are various situations require various kinds of action to effectively contain the situation. So, you see, the kind of operations we find ourselves engaging now, essentially asymmetric warfare, counterinsurgency, counter-terrorism. Civilians are embedded with the adversary.
Yes.
So it's largely intelligence-driven and also largely the kind of warfare that the helicopters are very effective at fighting, much more effective than the fixed-wing aircraft. You know, so definitely the situation we find ourselves from the northeast to the northwest down to the south-south, the helicopters, attack helicopters are very, very effective in containing such challenges. Yes, but the other platforms also, notwithstanding, they also have their roles in those territories. For example, we have fixed-wing ISR airplanes, you know, that will go to do recce. We have the unmanned aerial vehicles that also carry out precision strikes as well as intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And then we also have, like in the south-south, the Niger Delta region, we have fixed-wing airplanes that also carry out maritime patrols, which, you know, are not suited for helicopter operations. So the various types of platforms have roles to play, but yes, the attack helicopter is much more effective in the kinds of operations we are engaged in various parts of the country at present.
Every time the armed forces suffer a setback, because we know that in warfare, setbacks will happen. We can't discountenance setbacks. But every time the armed forces suffer a setback, the question people ask me is, Jide, where are the Tucanos? Nigerians love the Tucanos so much, maybe because of some of what they had had, even before they eventually got to Nigeria. Tell us, give us an idea of what the Tucanos are doing at this time and the level of their contribution to the successes that we are recording on the battlefield.
The Tucanos are a very formidable type of aircraft for the role they are designed for. So we have the Tucanos, and we have them in virtually all our theaters of operation. So, for example, in the South-South, they are involved in doing ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and they are also able to attack and destroy illegal refineries, as well as illegal boats and barges that, you know, are involved in crude oil theft. In the Northeast, they are also involved in conducting ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, as well as ground attack when we have adversaries. But you see, like I told you, the Tucano is a fixed-wing airplane. It's a ground attack airplane. And it's capable of also delivering precision weapons. But the kind of warfare that we are fighting is not necessarily all the time. The Tucano is not necessarily optimized for that kind of warfare. So yes, we use them, they are effective, but for example, you have a gathering of, you know, civilians and maybe suspected adversaries among them. You cannot use the Tucano to attack them because maybe it's going to deliver an aerial weapon, you know. And then again, if you are to use, for example, a precision strike, those are also the weapons are very expensive. You have to really do a lot of targeting process, a lot of ISR, confirmatory ISR before, you carry out that kind of attack. For example, one precision weapon, call them precision kill weapons, on the Super Toano may be as costly as maybe $100,000. So it's not on any kind of target you want to use that kind of weapon. So sometimes it's not too optimized for the kinds of operations that we do. But they are very effective in, for example, conducting ISR, and then in the use of cannons and rockets. But then we have to marry that with the possibility of collateral damage and civilian casualties. So because of that, their effect is a bit limited because of the kind of effect that they can have.
Let's talk about the possibility of collateral damage in your operations. We've experienced some of these unfortunate incidents, like what happened in Kalabalge local government in Borno State some years back, and then recently in Zamfara. How do we limit this collateral damage, the unwanted deaths of civilians in the theater of war? How do we ensure that these things really happen?
Again, I want to, state here that, you see, we, the armed forces, we are employed, we are trained, and we are paid to ensure that we protect civilians, to ensure the peace and security of the populace. So anytime there is any civilian casualties or collateral damage on ground, we are very, very sad about it. We are very, very unhappy about it because these are the same people and the same facilities that we are paid to protect. And so sometimes, when due to the nature of our operation, some of them get to suffer. We are very sad and very unhappy about it. But what we need to understand is that due to the nature of operations that we are conducting, due to the nature of the challenges, counterinsurgency, counter-terrorism, like I said earlier, the adversaries are embedded in the population. Sometimes they use the civilians as human shields. So it's extremely difficult to isolate them completely. We try all the time to make sure that we isolate them and in order to make sure that we limit civilian casualties. But as long as we operate in this kind of environment with these kinds of challenges, once in a while, there will be collateral damage, there will be civilian casualties, but we do whatever we can to limit them. For example, we have put a lot of initiatives in place. Now we have what we call the targeting cycle. We have the intelligence, surveillance, and recognition cycle. So we do a lot of ISR. We do a confirmatory ISR to determine, the location and the identity of targets. And then it goes through a lot of process with a lot of redundancies to make sure that we eliminate, and where it's not possible, to limit, civilian casualties or collateral damage to the barest minimum. So in addition to that, we also have a lot of additional training for our flight crew, in order to make sure that awareness training and training in terms of skills to be able to identify and also isolate these adversaries. So a lot of effort and initiative is going into that because it's also very sad for us to see it when it happens. But once in a while it will happen, and then we'll try what we can to make sure that we reduce it to the barest minimum all the time.
Is there a correlation between what we are talking about, this collateral damage, and wrong intelligence? Is there a correlation?
Well, right now, that is not possible. Like I said, we have we have what we call the intelligence cycle now, and also the targeting cycle, and all these have a lot of so before we go and engage any target, for example, or suspected adversary, we do surveillance on it, we do a confirmatory ISR on it, then we go through what we call the targeting cycle. All these processes are to ensure that the target is properly identified and is properly isolated, and where it's not possible, to ensure that the collateral damage is to the barest minimum. And sometimes we have called off missions when we see that it's going to have collateral damage that is unacceptable. So a lot of times we have done that. So now the chances of intelligence, really poor intelligence or bad intelligence creating collateral damage is virtually eliminated, because it goes through a lot of processes of confirmation before we eventually carry out a strike action.
Let's talk about the Northeast. There is verifiable evidence of improvement in the security situation in the Northeast. We rarely hear about even attacks on the armed forces, barracks, and all that. Tell me the extent of collaboration that you have with other armed forces, and how this has impacted on the success that we have recorded in the Northeast at this time.
There is no doubt that joint operations are much more efficient, much more effective. And we all, the service chiefs, the chief of defense staff, we all coming from where we are coming from, all strongly believe in jointness. And since coming on board, we have made very concerted efforts to make sure that the aspect of our jointness in the conduct of our operations is strongly enhanced. And there was also a very good foundation in terms of jointness that was set by the previous service chiefs. So we are built on it, and we are continuing to build on it. And I think that is fundamentally the reason why we are seeing a lot of the successes we are seeing, especially in the recent past. We can't have very significant success without really doing very effective joint operations. And we all realize that, we all know that, and there is no other way to it. So we are all putting every effort that we can to make sure that the jointness is really very coherent and very consolidated going forward.
Has the success recorded in the Northeast reflected in the number of sorties that your air platforms are making at this time?
Definitely, definitely. We have, in the recent past, conducted a lot of intensive, in all our theaters of operations, we have intensified, our air campaigns, and in all the theaters of operations, as we intensified, there was a direct correlation. We saw a reduction in the number of attacks, on soft targets, and also the level of the freedom of action of the terrorists, as well as the rate of their activities. So there is a direct correlation. We actually intensified our air campaign efforts in all the theaters of operation, and we have realized that there is a lot of reduction in those in the activities of these criminal elements in those theaters.
And when there is reduction in threat, then there will be a reduction in the sorties that the Air Force carries out. Or are we seeing a lot more of surveillance work now than before?
Definitely, because the strike or attack missions are a result of the intelligence. So if, say, we conduct intelligence ISR missions, and we do not identify any targets, then there will be no need for a strike mission to follow. So definitely if there is a reduction in the activities of terrorists and bandits, it means that there will be a reduction in, strike missions, but there will be an increase probably in ISR missions, because now we make more effort to look for them and, where they are, and get more intelligence on their whereabouts so that we can carry out more of the strike missions.
There are people who ask the question, how come we are not eliminating the prominent bandit leaders, especially operating in the Northwest and North Central? We talk about Bello Tuji and the rest of them. How come we've not taken them out? What really, from your own position as an airman and as a chief of the air staff, what really is the problem? How come these guys are able to escape the long arm of the Air Force up to now?
Okay, I can assure you that we are sparing no effort in looking for them. And we do a lot of missions, based on human intelligence that we have looking for these guys. But these guys are also very smart. So they keep moving around. They never stay in one place. So we get intelligence. They are in a particular location. Before we take an action, they have moved to another place. So it's a continuous effort, but I can assure you that we are making every effort to look for them, and it's just a matter of time. And that time is really short-lived. We are going to get each and every one of them.
In terms of the geopolitical zones where you are dealing with threats, which zone would you say is of primary concern to you in terms of the quantum of threats that you are receiving?
Okay, the threats are different in the different geopolitical zones. So, for example, in the Northeast, it's about insurgency and terrorism. Largely, we have been able to suppress that threat. Now, in the South-South, for example, it's economic sabotage, pipeline vandalism, crude oil theft. And so each zone has its own threats. We don't want to downplay any of the threats because, for example, now, the South-South is the mainstay of the Nigerian economy that is being sabotaged. So it's a very great threat to the nation as a whole. And because we must be able to protect those assets for the economy to thrive. And if there is no economic prosperity, then other issues, the issues of insecurity will get exacerbated, and so many other challenges will come in. So if you look at that, that is a very important area that we must, pay attention to make sure that those assets are secured in order for the economy to function and thrive, because it's only then that every other aspect of the society will function adequately.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but then each aspect of each geopolitical zone has its own peculiar threat, which we cannot downplay. They are all formidable threats, which we have to, pay the adequate attention that they deserve to be able to neutralize those threats.
How much contribution are the drones making? Some people say the drones are the future. How much contributions are they making? And I also heard that you are in the process of building your own drones. Please bring us up to speed with your plan with regard to building your own zones.
Yes, so the Nigerian Air Force has a very robust R&D setup. We started a lot because we realized that the Nigerian Air Force or the Air Force generally is a very technical force, and relies a lot on technology and a lot of equipment that are procured from foreign countries and foreign vendors. That is very expensive. So all the time we have to spend a lot of money. Our training, our equipment, everything is foreign based. So it's very costly for the government. Secondly, there is the aspect of national security, because if all their defense procurement is foreign based, it means any day your vendor or whoever you're procuring from decides not to sell to you, it means your national security suffers. So because of that, we realized that we really have to look inwards and win ourselves off this foreign dependence, albeit gradually. So we set up a very robust R&D establishments around the Air Force. And over the years, we have done very well. We have produced several prototypes of our unmanned aerial vehicles. You will have heard of the Seigumi, you will have heard of the Gulma, and some other prototypes. So we have been able to perfect the engines and the airframe of our unmanned aerial vehicles. We're at an advanced stage now of developing the avionics, which means the navigation and communication systems. And we have made a lot of progress in that also. And hopefully very soon we should be able to have our own very capable unmanned aerial systems. Like you said, the unmanned aerial systems are now a very formidable aspect of air power. First, they are cheaper than the manned airplanes. Number two, there is no risk to the human beings. Yeah. And then number three, they can do a lot more roles. For example, if you are doing an ISR mission, you can have an unmanned aerial system that can be airborne for up to 24 hours, which is virtually impossible for the fixed-wing airplanes, especially in this part of the world where we don't have air-to-air refueling. But the unmanned aerial vehicle is capable of doing that. So in the ISR role, for example, if you are monitoring a territory or a facility or any zone, you can do that for 24 hours. Hitherto we didn't have that kind of capability, and it's a very formidable capability to have. And then now we have drones also being able to carry out strike missions, and sometimes also with precision strikes. So of course, it's a very formidable aspect of air power now that we're very glad to have. We have a very fairly reasonable size of fleet in terms of the UAVs, but it's a work in progress. We are working to improve the size of the fleet so that we can employ them, more in our operational theaters. But yes, they are a very good platform, and they are really having a lot of impact in the conduct of our operations.
Let's talk about what happened recently. You lost equipment and men in the Shiroro area of Niger State. What has the investigation that the Air Force promised Nigerians to conduct yielded at this time?
The investigation has been instituted, has started, but it has not been finished. Luckily, we were able to recover the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder. They were all in very good shape. They were not affected by the crash. So we have recovered them, and we don't have a facility in Nigeria that can actually read and decipher the content. So we have to, send them out to the original equipment manufacturers to get an analysis of, the contents. So until that is done, we have already sent them out. So until they come back with the analysis, then before we'll be able to conclude on the findings of the board. So until then, we will not be able to say exactly what happened.
As a pilot, have you ever been fired at?
Yes and no. Why? Because I used to fly transport airplanes, like the C-130. So we have been fired at, but you see, we are normally at very high altitude, except when we are landing and taking off. So even if we are fired at, it's usually not effective. But in the heat of, the crisis around Maiduguri, when we used to do a lot of missions, dropping supplies and troops into the Maiduguri airport, we have actually been fired at some point, but it was not effective, so it didn't really get to the airplane.
It didn't hit targets.
No.
I asked this question because we saw the airplane on ground, but it was not burning.
Yes.
If an airplane takes a hit, maybe from a surface to air missile, for example, or some of the weapons that the insurgents have, is it not normal that the plane will catch fire, at least will be burning for some time?
Different things can, create an airplane to burn, or maybe even on crashing. Sometimes even in flights, even a fire in flight can make it, actually crash and burn. So again, you can fire an airplane and it can crash and not burn. It all depends on, what part of the airplane you fire and what is involved. So for example, if you fire the fuel tank, automatically there will be fire in most cases because the fuel is, very inflammable. But let's say you fire and then maybe you fire a crew member and he's incapacitated, the airplane will still crash, but it will not burn. So you see, the circumstances differ. It just depends on, But then an airplane can even catch fire while it is flying without anybody firing it from the ground, by way of an emergency. An airplane may also have a mechanical failure and crash, and due to the impact, it will also be engulfed in flames. So, the scenarios of the relationship between, being shot at on the ground and fire is not really a direct relationship. So many things can cause the fire, and so many other things can cause the crash. So they are not directly related.
Finally, give me an idea of what the Air Force is doing now in terms of acquisition of new platforms, new training platforms, new helicopters, and other platforms that you desire at this time. Are we to expect some new equipment?
Yes. So, for example, we have several platforms are coming in. We just took into our inventory 2 Diamond 62 airplanes. These are ISR airplanes. They don't fight, but they have very good cameras that do intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions. They are based in Ilorin. We actually acquired 4. The first 2 have arrived, and we expect the other 2 before the end of the year. Similarly, we have acquired the Beechcraft King Air 360, 2 of them, and we're expecting them also before the end of the year to arrive. That is and those also are fixed-wing airplanes. They are not for attack, light transport, and then ISR missions, light liaison. But we have 60 K129 attack helicopters, otherwise known as the Mangusta. They are coming from Turkey, and the first 2 are also arriving next month. Training has already been concluded for our pilots and technicians and other ground crew. So the first 2 are coming in next month, and before the end of the year, another 2 will come. And I think first quarter of next year, we have the final 2. Recently, also, the government has acquired for us the AH-1 Zulu helicopter from the United States. We are acquiring 12 of them. Yes.
They are ground attack helicopters.
Yes, they are attack helicopters. So we see we have these 6, and then we have that 12. So that's a very formidable asset to have. Yes. In addition to that, we also have the Trekker helicopters from Italy. Those are light attack and also liaison. They are not completely optimized for attack, but they can conduct light attack. So we're having another 10 of that is coming from Italy. So as far as the helicopter, attack helicopter platform is concerned, I think we're not doing badly once these platforms are inducted into the inventory of Nigerian Air Force and we start using them. So in terms of the fixed-wing airplanes, we have the M346, which is also from Italy. The government is acquiring 24 of them for the Nigerian Air Force. But the first deliveries will be towards the end of 2024, 2025. So it's still a long way before they come. But if they come eventually, they will significantly improve our capacity.
You don't appear to be interested in fighter jets at this time.
Like we said earlier, we have specific kinds of challenges now, or threats. And so what we're acquiring is what will contain those challenges or those threats. So looking for airplanes in the class of F-18, F-16 will be a secondary consideration because those airplanes are not optimized for the kinds of threats that we have now. But you see all these other acquisitions are tailored directly towards containing the kinds of threats that we have.
I understand.
Yes.
I understand. Well, as a young officer, there must be some air platforms that you loved and you must have fantasized seeing yourself in the cockpits of some of them.
Yeah.
Can you tell me as we wind up?
Yes. Maybe you have heard of the MiG-21s.
The Russian.
Yes, the Russian MiGs, is similar to the F-7s that we have operating now. So we used to have them in the 80s and, up to the late 90s before we stopped flying them. So as a young man, that was my dream airplane, to fly. They are optimized for, yes, they are optimized for air combat maneuvering, which means air-to-air dogfight, yes. And then they do limited ground attack, but then optimized for air combat maneuvering. So that was my dream airplane. But by the time we finished flying and started flying, before we started operational flying, they had stopped flying in the Nigerian Air Force. Same thing with their contemporaries, the Jaguars. They had actually stopped flying in the Nigerian Air Force that time. So we didn't get to fly them.
Thank you so much, Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Abubakar.
Thank you very much
for giving us the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you very much.
May God bless your efforts.
Thank you very much.
Continue to serve our country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I don't have time to take comments, but thank you. Lovely interview from the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Abubakar. We are gradually moving towards gaining our position as the superpower of Africa. By the time we acquire all those things he's talking about, the geopolitical should be careful.
Nobody can threaten us. I think he did very well. He spoke very well. Showed his brilliance. He's a shy person. He didn't think he did well. But anyone who listened to him will know that we have a bright person at Chief of
Coach James, thank you. We have to leave it there. Okay. And catch us on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I'm Ayodele Uzuba. See you tomorrow.